Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world, and especially to those of you sitting in the Upaya Zendo on this third day of Sesshin. Congratulations. There's no turning back, and there's nothing to do but just keep showing up. So, good work. Keep it up. And I'd like to express my gratitude to Upaya, to each of you who have set aside time to do this wonderful practice. It's so important that we have each other to practice with. It's really tough to do this alone. So that we have each other is just such a gift to each one of us. So thank you so much for your participation and your commitment to the practice. And thank you to Upaya for making it possible to have a place online and in person to go and practice and be together. Thank you to Roshi Joan for your wondrous work in this life to make it be so, to make so much be so. And so thank you. So for today's talk, I have the next a couple of stanzas of the song of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi. And first of all, let me say that today my sources are primarily three books. One by Taigen Dan Leighton called Just This Is It, Dogen and the Practice of Suchness. One is The Infinite Mirror by Chan Master Shengyan. And the third that I referenced a little bit is The Record of Dongshan, translated by William Powell. So you can ask me about those later if you have any questions. So here's the stanza, a couple of stanzas that I've somewhat organized my talk around for today. Goes like this. Like the 6 lines of the double split hexagram, the relative and absolute integrate. Piled up, they make 3. The complete transformation makes 5. It is like the taste of a 5-flavored herb, like the diamond thunderbolt. Wondrously embraced within the absolute, drumming and singing go together. Penetrating the source and traveling the way, you cover the territory and embrace the road. Complications are auspicious. Do not resist them. What is natural and inconceivable belongs to neither delusion nor enlightenment. Causes and conditions at this moment shines completely in the silence. So fine, it enters nowhere. So vast, it exceeds all bounds. A hair's breadth deviation, and you are out of harmony. So that's our passage. And when I read this, I thought, oh, great, this is a little complicated. But it really, what it brought forth for me right away was a talk given by Zentatsu Richard Baker Roshi's heir, who recently took his abbot's seat. Norman and I attended the stepping up ceremony of Tensuro Nicole Baden Roshi, the Dharma heir of Zentatsu Richard Baker Roshi, at the Dharma Sangha Temple in the Black Forest of Germany in late summer. I was so impressed by one word that she offered: stillness. She said to stay with stillness. I think she said to trust stillness. Stay with it, and the whole world will open up to you. Something like that. The word stillness. It's so difficult to find words that are helpful, not limited, not comparative, not pie in the sky, etc. in English. I often say, return to this moment, this body, this breath, this moment of Earth's gravity, so as not to pin down the quality of experience, which is your business. You know, like Guishan and Yangshan, known as the Guiyang family, as the first of the 5 families of Zen in the Tang Dynasty. Yangshan, the student of Guishan, Yangshan asks Guishan, when hundreds and thousands of objects come upon us all at once, then what? Isn't that a wonderful question? When hundreds and thousands of objects come upon us all at once, then what? Guishan answers, green is not yellow, long is not short. Everything is in its place. It's none of my business. He's expressing that sense of, this is a process of discovery, of personal discovery. And we can't discover each other's discoveries. It is really personal. Our own experience in life, in practice, in death, is unique and cannot be compared. This is why Zen style is so economical with words. Words can mislead us. Words do mislead us. So in Zen tradition, we take great care and economy in speech and are reluctant to spell things out. Yet, here I am again, yapping away, trying to come up with something that could be helpful to someone, somewhere, sometime, hoping these words will simply be dropped neatly into the compost if they are not useful to you. So when I heard Tatsuro Nicole's use of the word stillness, I felt a big yes, that's good. Not abstract, not rare or difficult to experience. You know, when you're listening to music, maybe live music, maybe a symphony or whatever you like, the music ends, and sometimes there's a space before the applause begins, a space of awe and stillness shared by the whole room. All spiritual teachings tell us that this stillness, awesome and shared, is always right here. I think that's the stillness Tatsuro Nicole was offering in her first talk as abbot of Dharma Sangha. This stillness is not somewhere other than where we are. It's not located in a quiet place. It's not an accomplishment for the future. This point is essential in Zen, and I think it's why we are here doing Zen together. I'd like to go back to a line from the first section of the Song of the Jewel Mirror Awareness, that the section that Kozan and I talked about on Monday. And the line is, turning away and touching are both wrong, for it is like a mass of fire. I read this again, wondering what about this line doesn't land for me. In reading Taigen, Dan Leighton's book, he references Dogen on this passage, in which Dogen says, turning away from suchness is wrong, and that aiming toward suchness is also wrong. And then he adds, aiming toward suchness and turning away from suchness are also both just suchness. This is like Suzuki Roshi's line, if you want to control your cows, give them a really big field. Dogen enlarged the suchness field to include us all, even in our crappiest moments of avoiding, grabbing, turning away and touching. Even that is suchness. Taigen, Dan Leighton, goes on to say that the poem states that suchness and its teaching provide a universal standard, and its use removes all suffering. The very nature of reality is liberation. The nature of reality in Chan, in Zen, is based on the Bodhisattva practice dedicated to relieving the suffering and the liberation of all beings. So what is it that removes all suffering? So in trying to sort it out, what about turning away and touching is both wrong, do I have a problem with? I've focused on the word wrong. I don't want wrong here because of its stark judgment. I want to use the word honorable or dignified or something like that. Honorable, because when we stay present with a massive fire without trying to escape, control, or manipulate it, we are honoring our bodhisattva nature to be present with all beings in suffering and in joy. Just be present, not to look away, not to take a break. And then Dogen says, even looking away is suchness, is honorable. This is human dignity. This is honorable. To touch and turn away, to be present, immovable, this mysterious human existence is that wide. It is that wide. So going on to the passage for today, the first 6 lines are like the 6 lines of the double split hexagram, the relative and absolute integrate. Piled up, they make 3. The complete transformation makes 5. It is like the taste of the 5-flavored herb, like the diamond thunderbolt. Taigen, Dan Leighton, talks about a cascade of 5s in Dongshan's poem. And I'm going to skip the I Ching reference and first tell you about the 2 other 5s. First of all, the 5-flavored herb. It's a traditional Chinese herb, which might be the hyssop. I have some hyssop in my garden that Wendy gave me once. It grows well here on the coast. It has a strong, peculiar smell. I don't think I've ever tasted it. The other possibility is the jur plant that grows in the mountains of southern China. The herb, whichever one it is said to combine the traditional 5 flavors of pungent, sweet, bitter, sour, and salty, which correspond to the 5 elements in traditional Chinese medicine: earth, wood, fire, metal, and water. The second 5 is the 5-pronged Vajra. In this translation, it's called the diamond thunderbolt, but it's the 5-pronged Vajra. It was a ritual element used in Vajrayana, used still in Vajrayana, or Tantric or esoteric Buddhism. This was significant in East Asia, and it would have been a familiar reference to people in the Tang and the Sung dynasties. So going back to the I Ching, just to say a little something, like the 6 lines of the double split hexagram, also called the illumination hexagram, I hadn't looked at the I Ching since I was a teenager, so I needed some help. And I found that Taigen and Leighton's discussion, as well as Master Shengyan's, to be very interesting and helpful. Also more complex than we need to understand and think about during Sesshin. Remember just this, that to people of the Tang and Sung dynasties, whether educated or not, would have been very familiar with these images as functioning in their own lives as divination, ancient wisdom, folklore, and remedies. Suffice it to say that the different permutations of the illumination hexagram are helpful guides to understanding the long and windy road of Zen practice in our lives and in our tradition. So for us doing Sesshin, let's trust the practice. Trust our fellow practitioners and teachers. Trust the sky, the ground, the earth's atmosphere, the earth's gravity. Trust yourselves. Trust. Trust that this practice is your best expression this week of human life. What it is to have this human life. And trust stillness. The next 6 lines of the Song of the Jewel Mirror Awareness, or Samadhi, are this. Wondrously embraced within the absolute, drumming and singing go together. Penetrating the source and traveling the way, you cover the territory and embrace the road. Complications are auspicious. Do not resist them. So wondrously embraced within the absolute, drumming and singing go together. In the Song of the Jewel Mirror Awareness, sometimes awareness is translated as samadhi because the topic here is samadhi. In our tradition, we don't speak that openly or often about samadhi because in our culture, we are so vulnerable to wanting to sign up for a program that will give us enlightenment, wanting to get high, or at least peace, harmony, and good relationships at work and at home. In our culture, we live and breathe the marketplace. So Zen teachers tend to be reluctant to toss samadhi into that marketplace. Also, samadhi isn't a commodity, a skill, or a talent that can set someone apart from others. It's our evolutionary inheritance, like breathing. So we joke about how boring Zen is. How after all these years, I have nothing to show for all this expensive Zen training, as Philip Whalen used to say. I can hear his voice. After all these years, I have nothing to show for all this expensive Zen training. But it is no joke to take a break from the marketplace, to unlearn commodification of everything, practice, enlightenment, love, this very human life. I think this is among the differences between the hearts and minds of Tang Dynasty people and us. And the differences are all trade-offs, by which I mean the challenges of bringing forth the Dharma, the Bodhisattva vow, are not greater or lesser for Tang Dynasty people and us. And even if they were, here we are in this moment of life on earth. But, and I wanted to mention this line, kind of to remind us that humans are humans. Shurto said he would say, not to attain, not to know. So yet, here we are in Sesshin, in which samadhi is likely part of our days. The instructions for samadhi are not different from the instructions for our whole life. In samadhi, refrain from trying to grab it. And when you do grab it and it disappears, refrain from moaning about that. Simply return to this breath, this body, this moment, this stillness. In our daily work and personal life, say, for example, in talking with a child, refrain from grabbing the child, telling the child what she should do and why you know this to be the case. Most likely, her eyes will glaze over and she'll look for the opportunity to walk away. If you want the company of a child, quiet down, see her, and listen. This is drumming and singing go together. You know, I'm a child person. So that's my go-to image in talking about this turning away and touching conundrum in our daily lives. All of us have so much experience in this. The image of drumming and singing go together. Drumming and singing go together. I think it's worth remembering as we live our life. You have a difficult conversation, to say to yourself, drumming and singing go together. Penetrating the source and traveling the way, you cover the territory and embrace the road. Our work in life is traveling the way and embracing the road itself, having the right shoes and a hat. By doing our life completely, in and out of samadhi, we penetrate the source and cover the territory. Step by step, moment by moment, breath by breath, and meal by meal. Oryoki meals are central. They're a central event and practice for us during Sesshin. The combination of details and timing and actually trying to get something important done make Oryoki unique and kind of high stakes. Important because it's how we eat for a week in Sesshin. High stakes because most people in Sesshin have little or no experience using Oryoki bowls and utensils, laying them out in the prescribed way and keeping pace with the whole thing. I cannot tell you how many spectacular moments of Oryoki surprises, omissions, mistakes involving projectiles and crashing noises and amazing properties of flowing liquids I have witnessed over the years. Every quiet, orderly moment of Oryoki is a miracle. It is a time and place to practice, to monitor our monologues for judgment, for judgmental themes, to blur our eyes to the mistakes of others, to call forth gratitude for just sitting quietly and having someone show up with food for you over and over again. our practice is important because we are mistaken if we think our own personal thoughts are contained within the boundary of our own skin. Our thoughts spread in surprising ways because they don't really belong to us in the first place. So they tend to wander around the room. During Oryoki, observe the miracle of the human hand. Widen tender and loving awareness to include those around you. Taste the food. Receive the nourishment of the food and the people who prepared it and the people who brought it to the very place you are sitting. For those of you who prepare food for people this week, and for those of you who carry food to people in the Zendo, recall the privilege of serving others, the enormous privilege to seeing people's nourishment with your work, your bodies and minds, your time. It is truly a precious practice for us to bask in during Sesshin. The next lines are, complications are auspicious. Do not resist them. As far as I can tell, we will never get over complications, difficulties, confusion, mistakes of small, medium, and large scope. You know, it is through our difficulties, our mistakes, our humiliations, our miserable failings, that we can see others. Humility and self-knowledge, yes, make us sadder and wiser, and open our hearts and our eyes, and make urgent in our hearts and minds the question, how can I serve? We know that people who have suffered extreme loss, who have done extreme harm to others, can turn toward healing themselves by serving. Serving others in Sesshin is doing our practice, showing up, breathing in and out, knowing we are breathing in and out together at Upaya, in California, all over the country and all over the world. This awareness is serving, and bringing this to mind, we can feel the responsibility we have to each other to show up, be present, make mistakes, forgive ourselves and others, open our hearts to this. So complications are auspicious. Do not resist them. Allow them as ingredients of our very lives. Next, next stanza, it's 8 lines, 2, 4, 6, 8. What is natural and inconceivable belongs neither to delusion nor enlightenment. Causes and conditions at this moment shine completely in the silence. So fine, it enters nowhere. So vast, it exceeds all bounds. A hair's breadth deviation, and you are out of harmony. This beautiful passage brings us back to stillness. Stillness in the kitchen, stillness in a field of noisy birds, stillness at the airport, where causes and conditions at this moment shine completely in the silence. Stillness of a sleepless night. Discovering what we can come back to over and over again in our practice is our own business. I and other teachers may offer many suggestions, but in the end, it is your practice, your work to do, your responsibility to discover what inspires you. What brings you back home to this breath, this body, this moment? It may not be a word. It may be an image or a sensation. And it may change now and then. You will learn to recognize it through repetition. Repetition is the through line in our lives. Breathe in, breathe out. Heartbeats, sun rises, sun sets. Sleep, eat, sit, do the shopping, make the appointments, pay the taxes. Find your through line. Find the stillness. Discover the joy in breathing. We do this through repetition. Don't be afraid of the hair's breadth deviation. Don't be afraid of being out of harmony. How could it be otherwise for creatures like us? So fine it enters nowhere, so vast it exceeds all bounds. Our practice is always right here at hand. Even when we take a hair's breadth step away and find ourselves out of harmony, even that, as Dogen says, is suchness, is stillness, is our human life. And it is the crack in the window through which we see each other. Thank you very much. And please take good care of yourself, good care of your practice, good care of your bodies and your lives, and the people that you do.